Well, hey, you made it back. When last we spoke, I just received a phone call from Paris. Well, let's check in and see how that all turned out. About the middle of the day, I get a call from Paris, France. Wait, what? Yep, yeah, you heard me. Paris, France. It's my nephew. Remember my nephew? We went to his wedding a week before this. And he's calling me from Paris saying, Uncle Jesse, hey, you're the family travel expert. We're in Paris, and we're trying to get to Athens to get on a cruise ship. I remember thinking, oh man, so one more thing I really do not need to deal with today. And I felt like my chest was starting to tighten up. Yeah, you guys are probably better at reading symptoms than I am. I pretty much ignored that. So I said, well, let me get to work on it. Let me see what we can do. And so I started playing travel agent. And guess what? All the computers were messed up and everybody was kind of stuck. Well, we found some solutions for the nephew. He did not make it to Athens in time to catch his cruise ship, though. We wound up flying him straight to Santorini, where he wound up having a fabulous honeymoon. Worked out better than we ever could have possibly imagined. So don't worry about the nephew. He wound up being just fine. Well, the day progressed. The computers weren't getting any better. Chest was getting tighter and sore, and wasn't like, I guess, what I thought a heart attack should be. But anyway, along about 5 o'clock, I got an email. And that email said that my right-hand man, my main partner in crime, the guy that I really, really leaned on in my particular job, was leaving Emerson. Oh, yeah, man, that really, really, really hurt. My chest really felt like I'd been hit with a fastball just right in the chest. And I told Mrs. Trout, that's it, I'm done for the day. She said, you gotta calm down, you're having a panic attack. She said, go out and walk the dogs. And I said, that's a good idea, I'm gonna go walk the dogs. So down the hayfield I went. Now let me show you what that means. I'm gonna try to turn this around here, sorry for that bright sunshine. But up there on the top of the hill, that's where we live. Down here in the hayfield, that's where we walk the dogs. There's the dogs. So anyway, down to the hayfield I went walking the dogs. Didn't really feel a whole lot better. Came back up the hill and really felt pretty crappy. I told Mrs. Trout, and hey Mom, if you're listening to this, sorry. Mom Trout doesn't like me to drink alcohol. And I don't drink a lot of alcohol, but occasionally I have alcohol. Anyway, told Mrs. Trout, I'm getting liquored up. And she said, you go, boy. And I poured me a big old tumbler full of bourbon. And I took a sip of the bourbon, and it burnt. It just really, like my whole throat was burning. And I said, Mrs. Trout, I don't feel right. I said, I'm gonna go lie down for a little while. I went and tried to lie down, and I tossed and I turned and I turned and I tossed, and I just couldn't get comfortable. I got up, told Mrs. Trout, I don't think I'm gonna have any dinner. I'm gonna take some Advil and see if I can get this chest pain to calm down. And I'm gonna try to go to bed. And I poured out the bourbon. Life lesson number 2. If you pour out the bourbon, go to the hospital. I didn't go to the hospital. Made it through the night, got up the next day, down the hill, walking the dogs, back up the hill, running around doing all my errands and chores and whatnot, and still feeling not quite right. Working in the yard, doing what I do, driving around. Sunday, same thing. I'm really not feeling right. Finally called Mom, said, hey, something's not quite right. Said my blood pressure's starting to go up. She's like, oh, I don't like the sound of any of this. She said, if your blood pressure goes up one more number, one more little bit, you go to the AM/PM clinic. I'm like, okay. Otherwise, you call first thing tomorrow morning, you get an appointment to see your primary care physician. And I said, okay. So, made it through the rest of the day. Blood pressure didn't really go up anymore. Didn't really go down either. Still kind of got that almost like a bruised feeling in my chest. Next morning, my primary care physician starts to take appointments at 7:30. I called and said, hey, I've been having chest pains for 3 days. Let me tell you what, when you tell a doctor you've been having chest pains for 3 days, they'll find a way to get you in. Well, my primary care physician wasn't available, but they said they could get me in to see this other guy. And I said, that'll be just fine. 8 o'clock, and jumped on my first conference call of the day, because that's what I used to do, conference calls all day long. Anyway, jumped on my first conference calls with, as a matter of fact, the company my good buddy Russ works for. And I'm on the call, and at about 8:30, I said, hey guys, I got to switch over to the car. I'm going to head to the doctor, but I'll still be on the call. So driving to the primary care physician, the new one, the one I haven't seen yet, on a conference call with chest pains. At this point, I hope you're saying, you're stupid. And yes, you would be right. So anywho, I head to the primary care physician and walk in, and I meet Dr. Jacinto Obregon. I'd obviously never met before. And he said, all right, before we look into what's been bothering you, let me take a look at your records here. And he pulled up my records from a year ago. You remember when everybody said I'm doing wonderful? Pulled up my records and said, well, these numbers are terrible. And I said, what? And he said, well, I can tell from these numbers that you don't eat right and you don't exercise. And I said, wait a minute. The other doctor said I needed a few less cheeseburgers and a little more exercise. And he says, you need a lot more than that. Well, let's get back to that a little bit later. So he puts the little things on my chest for the EKG, and he does the little EKG test, and I hear him say, uh-oh. Well, let me tell you, you don't ever want to hear a doctor say, uh-oh. Then he says, I got to make a phone call. I said, what? He said, I got to make a phone call. So he calls the emergency room down the street and says, I need to talk to the ER doctor on call. And this is on his iPhone on speakerphone. And so when the ER doctor comes on, Dr. Obregon says, I've got a 61-year-old male that's been having chest pains for 3 days. And then he read off some technical stuff off of that EKG printout. And I heard the ER doctor say, put him in an ambulance and send him to us immediately. Well, that's when it got real. And I texted, while Dr. Obregon was wrapping up that call, I texted Mrs. Trout and said, we got a problem. Meet me at the emergency room of this hospital. And so Dr. Obregon hung up with the ER doctor, and I said, okay, I'm going to drive myself on over there. And he's like, well, we don't recommend that. I said, look, I drove here. It's 30 miles to the house. I drove 30 miles. I can drive another 3. And so he said, well, take this with you. And he handed me the printout of the EKG. And I said, okay. And so I went off to the emergency room, and I walked in with my printout of the EKG. Let me tell you what, when you walk into an ER room with a printout of an EKG, you go right to the head of the line. They rushed me in, threw me in a chair, and I could hear code 42, code 42. And all of these doctors come running to check on Trout. All right, I'm gonna hit the pause button now, and we'll come back to the story here a little bit later on. I told y'all I told long stories. Come back next time, find out what happens at the hospital. Y'all take care.